Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, and may peace and blessings be upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today, inshallah, we are going to study a new lesson about the Quran Tajweed. So let's start. And I would like to remind you, firstly, by the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it to others. خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. So let's start. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So, session number one will be talking about an introduction about the Quran Tajweed and the knowledge of Tajweed. So, let's start together. So, we'll be discussing firstly the meaning of the word Tajweed and why we learn the Tajweed. What is the niyyah or intention behind learning the Tajweed? What are the types of Tajweed? And our syllabus will be around which part, and also the session plan and then references. So, let's begin together. So firstly, we have in Islamic representation the two kinds of definitions. We have what we call the literal definition and the technical definition. So if we would like to define the word tajweed, it means it came from the root word jawwada or hassana. So tajweed means tahsin, okay? This is linguistically from the language perspective, and we call this the linguistic definition or the literal definition. So it means tajweed or tahsin. So to beautify something, it means to beautify something, to make something mujawad, or to make tahsin to something, to improve something, to make it proper. So it means linguistically betterment, improve, develop, to make it better, well, good, proper, or to beautify something. And this is actually the linguistic or the literal definition. We have also another technical definition, which means that for the scholars of the tajweed, what does it mean, the word tajweed? So it means to give each letter its right in pronouncing, like the description and the origination or the articulation point for the letter, so that I give each letter its right in pronouncing regarding its characteristics, regarding its articulation point. I give all the rights for this letter. So this is the technical definition. So the first definition we mentioned is called the linguistic definition, and the second is called the technical definition. Okay, so this is regarding the meaning of the word tajweed. Now, the next question is that why we actually learn the tajweed, why it's so important to learn the tajweed. What do you think? Okay, actually, the main two reasons we learn the tajweed for is the first is that to recite the Quran upon the way the Prophet ﷺ is reciting, as it has been received from the Archangel Jibril, who received it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second reason is that to avoid the mistakes in the recitation which might change the meaning of the Quran. For example, in Surah Al-Fatiha, we say Maliki Yawmiddin. I say Maliki, so Maliki means the owner. But if I pronounce it wrongly as Malik, which means the king, it gives a totally different meaning. So in the Quran, I should deliver the exact meaning that's meant by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the context of the Quran. So it's meant by the legislator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as that. So it should be this meaning. It shouldn't be any other meaning. So that's why the tajweed in Arabic language is very important when we come to talk about the Quran specifically, because the Quran, we say tajweed means to give each letter its right in pronouncing, to pronounce each letter properly with its articulation points, with from the right place, from the right articulation point, with the short vowel, with the right short vowel, fatha or kasra or dhamma. We will see this later, inshallah. And so if I pronounce it in a different way, even slightly, it will change the meaning of the word. And if you change the meaning of the word, this means you change the word that Allah mentioned. And actually, the Quran is representing the words of Allah. So this means that you are changing a word that Allah mentioned in the Quran, which means that you might change the words of Allah. And this is actually not acceptable at all. It's forbidden in Islam to change the Quran or change the meaning of the Quran. That's why it's obligatory, or it's very important to recite the Quran properly with the tajweed. And also the first reason that to recite it upon the way the Prophet ﷺ has recited this way. So the Quran is actually a revelation. It came from the Prophet ﷺ this way. The Prophet ﷺ recited the Quran this way, so we have to imitate exactly the same way as the Prophet ﷺ was pronouncing the Quran, was reciting the Quran. The Archangel Jibril was reciting the Quran upon the Prophet ﷺ in that way. So the Prophet ﷺ repeating the Quran upon the Archangel Jibreel, and he corrected the Quran for the Prophet ﷺ, and so on and so forth. So Quran was basically took by listening, or has been received to us by listening, or by oral recitation, or by, we can say, practical recitation. So we have to recite the Quran that way. So first, because that it's a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by this way. So we have to stick to this revelation. We have to stick to this way that has been revealed to us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the Archangel Jibreel, and then to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that way. So we have to stick to the way the Quran has been revealed to us. The second is that we have to avoid the mistakes in the recitation that we might make, because it will change the meaning of the Quran, and we should not change the meaning of the Quran. So these are the two main reasons why we should recite the Quran with the tajweed. Why actually we learn the tajweed, why we should learn the tajweed, or what might be the benefits from the recitation of the tajweed. Actually, Quran has so many benefits to recite, whether you memorize, whether you learn it, or whether you teach it to others. So we call this benefits. What are the benefits of reciting, even reciting the Quran? So we deal that we should recite the Quran with the tajweed. That's number one. The second is that what are the benefits actually? What are the benefits of reciting the Quran? What are the benefits of learning the Quran, or dealing with the Quran with any way? So actually, this has been mentioned in many verses of the Quran and many ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We will mention now some of the ahadith, or some of the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that tell us about the benefits. So the benefits of learning tajweed are so many, and reflected in some of the following hadith, or the following sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The first is that the Prophet ﷺ said, the reciters of the Quran will be with the company of the noble obedient angels. So actually, when you recite the Quran and you gather with a group to recite the Quran, so you will be surrounded by angels. Actually, angels now are surrounding us because we learn something around the Quran or around the Tajweed. So we have to believe in this in our hearts, that angels actually are surrounding us, and in times when we recite the Quran. The second is that we will be considered out of the best people. The Prophet ﷺ said, the best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it to others. So the best kind of people, or the best um, um, uh, category of people, are those who are holding the Quran, who are learning the Quran, or teaching it. So people who give care to the Quran, who give attention to the Quran, to learning to learn the Quran, or to teach it, or to know more about it. And actually, Quran, its learning process is endless. Actually, it's infinite. So they will be out of the best people. So the Prophet ﷺ said, the best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it to others. The third hadith is that the Prophet ﷺ said, there are 10 rewards for each letter when you recite the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever reads a letter from the book of Allah will be rewarded 10 times for each letter. And I'm not saying alif lam mim a letter. As you know, the word alif lam mim is mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. So alif lam mim is not one letter. The Prophet ﷺ said, I'm not saying alif lam mim a letter, alif, but rather alif is a letter, lam is a letter, and mim is a letter, referring to that fact that every single and individual letter will be considered as a letter separate in the Quran, on which you will be rewarded 10 times for each one. So imagine, for example, when I say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the word bismi, ba, sin, mim. So how many rewards would you get for the word bismi? Exactly, 30 rewards, because each letter, there are three letters, and each letter I get 10 rewards for it. So I get 30 rewards just for the word Bismi. Imagine if you say Bismillah Rahman Rahim, how many rewards would you get? Imagine if you recite a page from the Quran, how many rewards would you get? So also here, this is the hadith. So we are surrounded by angels, we be considered out of the best people, and we get 10 rewards for each letter. Let's now summarize the benefits. Also, the benefits has been mentioned in the Quran and in the Ahadith. So I will mention to you some of the benefits, and you can also put the benefits as much as you can. You can write them on a paper to remind yourself always about the benefits of the Quran, because actually the benefits is your motivation. It's your niyyah, it's your intention. So why you are reciting the Quran now because of so and so, because of these benefits. So the more the benefits you have for recitation for the Quran, the more motivated you get, motivation you get in order to read the Quran and to recite the Quran, and also more rewards you get. So, as we said, the first is that we are surrounded by angels. The second is that we'll be considered out of the best people. The Prophet ﷺ said, the best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it to others. Or we can say, خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. And the third is that we get 10 rewards for each letter. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever recites a word from the book of Allah will be rewarded 10 times for each letter. The Prophet said, I'm not saying alif, lam, mim, a letter, but rather I'm saying alif, a letter, lam, a letter, mim, a letter. And also we would reach high levels of paradise. There is a hadith, a certain hadith also, or saying of the Prophet ﷺ that is saying, um, around that we reach high levels of paradise, that it will be said to the reciter of the Quran, read, recite, and elevate in your levels. Your level will be at the last verse you're going to stop at. And also we gain Allah's protection in the worldly life, in this dunya, in this life. We gain Allah's protection from what? From evil, from envy, from diseases, from hardships sometimes, and also from people who might hold bad intentions towards us. So any kind of evil you might imagine, the Quran gets you protected from. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, what is the proof of this part? That وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Okay, so we are revealing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we are revealing from the Quran what's considered to be cure and mercy for the believers. And also to be a wise person. The Quran helps you to be a wise person, to be more wise. Quran gives you like role models and beneficial stories mentioned in the Quran. So you have a role model for the Prophet ﷺ, and how the Prophet ﷺ was behaving in different kind of situations or hardships. How the Prophet Yusuf behave in different situations, how the prophet Moses or Musa alayhi salam, may peace and blessings be upon them all, behaved in certain situations, and how they deal with the hardship. So you have role model, you have a big story, you have lots of stories to give you role models for each and every and different situations. So this gets you wiser, this gets you more stick to the Quran, and to the and to have a guideline to follow in the Quran. So Quran also helps you to hold or have in your heart tranquility and peace inside your hearts. And we need this a lot in our life, because we miss and we might lose our tranquility and peace when we deal with a different kind of situations and different difficulties in life. So Quran keeps the tranquility and peace in our hearts and gets us feel more comfortable. And Allah said this actually in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. Only by the remembrance of Allah, hearts would feel tranquility and peace. And also, Quran will intercede for us in afterlife. It will work as an intercessor. In the day of judgment or day of resurrection, Quran will intercede for us. So the more you recite the Quran will come to you. And if you make lots of sins, or that you need Allah to forgive you for, the Quran will come to say, oh Allah, this person was reciting me, so please Allah forgive him. So it will work as an intercessor for you in the day of judgment. So let's summarize the benefits. They are, we if you recite Quran, if you hold the Quran, if we give attention to the Quran, if we listen to the Quran even, okay, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. If the Quran is recited, listen carefully, so that Allah's mercy would encompass you. So the first benefit is that we are surrounded by angels. To be out of the best people, the best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it to others. To get 10 rewards for each letter. The Prophet ﷺ said, I'm not saying alif lam mim a letter, but rather I say alif a letter, lam a letter, mim a letter. We would reach high levels of paradise. It will be said to the reciter of the Quran, read, recite, and elevate in your levels. Your level will be at the last verse you're going to stop at. And also we gain Allah's protection in the worldly life. We are revealing from the Quran what's considered to be cure and mercy for the believers. Allah said this in the Quran. And we also might be, we gain wisdom. The Quran will make us more wise, because it gives us role models, and to learn from the role models and the beneficial stories mentioned in the Quran. And also we would hold the tranquility and peace in our hearts. We feel more tranquility and peace, more comfortable inside ourselves. And we need this so much. ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. Only by the remembrance of Allah hearts would feel tranquility and peace. And also the Quran will intercede for us in afterlife, and it work as an intercessor. So these are the benefits of recitation of the Quran. You can write them down for yourself. You can write them in a paper to remind them. To remind yourself with them each time. So every time you open the Mus'haf and recite the Quran, please read these benefits because they will help you so much to hold, to remember them, and to have the motivation towards the Quran and towards your life totally. So you can also add more benefits to these. These are, I just mentioned some of them, and this from based on the source is coming from the Quran and Sunnah, from the Quran or the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, we have two actually types of tajweed. What are the types of tajweed? The types of tajweed are either theoretical or practical. What is the theoretical and what is the practical? The theoretical type of the tajweed is the knowledge itself, that knowing the tajweed rules and knowing the Arabic letters. And this has to do with the teachers, actually. The teachers should have the theoretical knowledge because they teach others. So they should know exactly the reason why this rule is pronounced this way. What is the name of this rule? Okay, and they should be knowing also the Arabic letters and how we should pronounce them, and what is the grammar, and what is why the letters are pronounced in this way, and so and so. So we can say that the theoretical part of the tajweed is the know-how or the knowledge itself. So, for example, I give you example. For example, if we have the rule in the Quran that is called the qalqala, this is the name of the rule. When you pronounce the Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Surah Al-Ikhlas in the Quran, so you should recite it this way. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد أحد. So you make hesitation for the letter dal, right? Okay. It doesn't matter whether you know there is the hesitation or not. This is if you don't know, this is the knowledge. But but knowing that you the word ahad, that when you say ahad, that this is called the qalqala, that this is called the hesitation. So this is the theoretical knowledge. Okay, this is the theoretical tajweed. It's your knowledge that the name of this rule is so and so, that the name of this rule is qalqala, that the name of this rule is so and so, that this is the Arabic letters are so and so, and the short vowels are fatha kasra dhamma. So the theoretical is the knowledge of the tajweed rules and the knowledge of the Arabic letters or the Arabic language. The practical is what is applying this knowledge actually to apply the tajweed rule and to pronounce the Arabic letters. For example, the same verse when we say قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, ad. So making this ad, to make this hesitation practically, is the practical knowledge, even if you don't know the rule. Okay, so the if we see the kid reciting the Quran, the kid or the child or the young person doesn't know the theoretical part. He doesn't know why we pronounce ahad this way, but he pronounced it in a correct way, which is ahad. So practically, he is pronouncing the Quran with the tajweed, but theoretically, he don't know the rules. So that's why we have two types of the tajweed: the theoretical part, which is the knowledge or the know-how, and the practical part, which that you practically pronounce it in the right way. Also, the same, I can give you another example. It's in the language. When you learn the English language or the Arabic language, the kids learn the language by practicing, okay, by the practical way. They don't have to know why we pronounce the English this way, why we give he is or she is, why we pronounce the language this way, okay, but they pronounce it practically in a right way. So this is, they have the practical knowledge, but they don't have the theoretical knowledge. So this is exactly the same as in the tajweed. We have theoretical knowledge and we have practical knowledge. Now the second thing that we have to mention is that the practical knowledge is obligatory for each and every single Muslim, but the theoretical knowledge is not obligatory or not obligatory for each and every single Muslim. Why is that? Because as we refer to the first page we have learned in this presentation, that we said that why we must pronounce the Quran with the tajweed, because of the two reasons that it has been revealed this way to the Prophet ﷺ, and it has been taken from the Archangel Jibril by this way to the Prophet, from Allah to the Archangel Jibril to the Prophet ﷺ, practically, orally, practically, okay? Um, and the second reason is that to avoid making mistakes in the Quran. We said that, right? So it's a must. It's obligatory not to make mistakes, and it's obligatory not to recite it in a different way than the Prophet ﷺ. That's why in your pronunciation for the Quran, you must pronounce the Quran practically with the tajweed. So that's why the practical type of the tajweed is the obligatory type of the tajweed, or is obligatory for each and every single Muslim. We say that in Arabic it's a farda ayn. Farda ayn, it means obligatory for each and every single Muslim. But the theoretical tajweed it has to do only with the teachers. It's enough for the group of people or the group of Muslims in the Ummah to have the knowledge of the theoretical part in order to spread it out to other Ummah or to other people or to other Muslims in the Ummah. Okay, so we call it in Arabic fard kifaya, or it's not obligatory, or it's only obligatory for a group of people or group of Muslims, not for each and every single Muslim. So the theoretical knowledge so actually, the theoretical knowledge is fardi kifaya, or it's only obligatory for a group of people, group of Muslims. But the practical knowledge is farda ayn, or it's obligatory for each and every single Muslim. So each and every single Muslim should apply the tajweed rules in their recitation and should pronounce the Arabic letters in a good way, in a proper way, exactly the same as the Prophet ﷺ was pronouncing. And it's the types, these are the types of the tajweed. Our syllabus will be focusing firstly about isti'adha and basmala. Isti'adha is the noun form of the أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. So we name it as isti'adha. Basmala referring to Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Okay? And then we will study Surah Al-Fatiha and how to pronounce Surah Al-Fatiha properly in a good way, and then other short surahs from section 30 in the Quran. And we also will pronounce the Arabic letters and study the Arabic letters parallelly with the tajweed. So the syllabus will be parallelly focusing on three parts or three aspects. The first is that the Quran itself and how to recite it. The second is that the theoretical tajweed, the name of the rules, qalqala, nun, sakina, mim, sakina, and so on and so forth. So we call this the practical tajweed, which is the Quran, how to recite it, and we call this the theoretical tajweed, okay? And also Arabic letters. The three together will help you to pronounce the Quran, or to recite the Quran properly, perfectly with the tajweed in a proper way. Because the words of Allah consisting of sentences and consisting of words, and each word consisting of Arabic letters. So at the end, we have to study the Arabic letters also as well, and we have to learn how to articulate the Arabic letters in a proper way, perfectly, letter by letter first, and then two letters, and then the whole word, until we reach the level that we can pronounce the Quran totally with the tajweed. So the session will be focusing on to that we listen usually to the students' recitation and explain the new lesson of the tajweed, correct mistakes, practice questions if we have questions, and we give assignments. I give you assignment as an audio, and our main reference actually is that to send your you have to send your recitation in a message to correct it for you. And also, you have to listen to the Hawsari recitation, to the Shaykh Hawsari recitation for the Quran. And we will take also the Arabic lesson. Okay, and we have Mus'haf of the Tajweed. It's including the rules of the Tajweed. You can also have it from any stationery beside you or any masjid. Also, we will work from Mus'haf al-Madina also as well. And the final assignment will be as follows. You have to work on the listening part, the speaking part, the reading and writing, and the Arabic letters. For the listening part, you have to listen to the Hawsari recitation. For the speaking or recitation, your recitation itself, you have to practice reciting, repeat your recitation, and record your recitation in an audio. And for reading, you have to learn how to read by yourself from the Mus'haf of the Tajweed or from the Mus'haf al-Madina. And you have to write the studied surah. If you can write the Arabic letters and you reach the level that you can write the Arabic, you can also write it and write the surah later. And for the Arabic letters, you have to practice it this way, that to pronounce the letter, to repeat the letter, and to write the letter at the end. So thank you. This is all regarding the introduction for the Quran Tajweed. and see you next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.